That's what got everybody.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Monday, April 22nd, 2019 Board of Selectmen, Highway Commissioners, Cemetery Commissioners meeting. First order of business, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Might need it. Sorry, Mr.
First up on the agenda, acceptance of minutes, April 8th, 2019. What is the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the minutes of April 8th, 2019 as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded to accept as written. Any comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
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 Unanimous. Appointments, Economic Development Committee, Monique Guillermo, term to expire June 30th, 2020. Greg?
The recommendation is in the packet. So that's you to consider it.
Is Monique present?
John Dyer is supposed to be representing her.
Mr. Joseph? In the absence of the applicant, is it okay to just put the appointment? Chair will entertain a motion to appoint Monique.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we appoint Monique Guillermo to the Economic Development Committee, term to expire June 30th, 2020.
Motion made to appoint.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Joseph. Any further comments or questions? Just want to state publicly, we thank her for stepping up, and that's becoming a pretty important committee in town.
Yes.
All in favor, state aye.
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 Unanimous. Next up, Highway Department,
Monique.
Labor Truck Driver position, Mr. Paletta.
Good night, everyone.
Good evening.
This is to fill the last vacancy we have on the Highway Department at this time. Logan Miller. He interviewed very well and seems like a good candidate for the job.
I'll just go over briefly. Does he have, I know he obviously has the minimum qualifications. Does he have the hydraulic, or
Yes.
he does have it?
Yes.
Anybody have
Is he
questions?
here?
No.
That's too bad.
Nice if he came, just to
Yep.
introduce him to everybody.
He's been working late. He works out Billerica or something.
All right. Maybe we can bring him in, Vinnie, once he's appointed. Just bring him in and say hello. Get to see his face, if he's appointed. Mr. Massey?
Yeah, I also noticed in his volunteer experience, he's a volunteer fireman in East Thompson, so that's good. So, Mr. Chairman, I move that we take the Highway Superintendent's recommendation to appoint Logan Miller to the Highway Department labor position.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further comments or questions?
I just want a few more minutes to
Yep.
scan his resume.
Yeah, my only concern, Vinnie, is it just looks like he job hops a lot. Lasts about a year or so in every position.
Well, we worked off the old list, and this, instead of doing the whole job app all over again.
Well, it just seems, if you look at his resume, the most he's ever spent was 2 years. One place. That's all. That's what I noticed.
The appointment date would be 2 weeks from today or sooner.
Yeah, could he give his
Wanna
notice?
add
We can add that to my motion,
Motion to
please.
take effect on, what, May, what's that, Michelle? Like
April
May 5th
April
or something?
6th.
May 6th?
May
Yeah, May.
May 6th.
May 6th is a Monday.
2 weeks from today.
The two good things he has going for him. He's got the qualifications. 2014 did CDL, et cetera, right? He is and has been a member of the Quinnebog Thompson Fire Department for what, 10 years? There's
East
stability there. And in his current position, in 2 more months, he will have been there 2 years. So, you're willing to take a chance on him?
Yeah, I mean, He loves his job, he does the same thing we do, basically. The only thing that's killing him is the travel. He hates traveling, he's sick of the traveling, that's all. But he likes the job.
And you know what, you think about it, only 7 years ago, he graduated from high school. So it's not like the guy's gonna have a gray beard at this stage. So it's not unusual for some job hopping in the beginning until you can settle your professional buttocks in a decent job. All right? And he's got a trend towards that by 2 years in his current job. So I'm okay with him.
Anybody else?
Mr. Chairman, I also noticed he's got a degree from Ellis Tech in automotive, so I don't know why, if you'd ever need a mechanic down the road, he might be interested in that. Just a thought.
Well, the guys do mechanical work. Like, on a rainy day, we'll have them in a shop helping the mechanic, so that experience will come in handy. One more thing I wanted to add too is he did pass his pre-employment physical for the town already too.
I'm okay.
Second, I motion.
Corners, any concerns out of the corner office?
No comment. I was not involved in this position.
So the motion was made and was amended to reflect a appointment in 2 weeks. Second person, good with that?
Yes.
Or sooner. Or sooner,
He says on his thing, 2 weeks' notice.
yes.
So
He
you
didn't know how his,
want us to appoint him tonight, and then if something happens, he
Yeah.
can start?
appoint tonight in 2 weeks, appointed
With an
to
effective date.
work 2 weeks from now or sooner.
Yeah, let's-
Could I suggest that we
Let's back up. Let's withdraw
we-
that first motion.
Yeah, I would-
amend the motion, if we want to take it back?
Yeah, start from scratch.
All right, I take it back. Let's start
So the
over.
motion would be to appoint him tonight, and the starting date would be to be determined by the appointee and by the highway superintendent.
No
So-
later than 2 weeks.
Second.
I would leave it that way.
Okay. Motion made and seconded. Michelle, you got it?
Yep.
Any further questions for the interim superintendent? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Keep us in the loop, Vinnie.
Any?
We would like to see him someday. Thank you. This time, we have a town administrator, public comments, citizen comments, informational. Anybody not on the agenda wishing to be heard? Lori? Good evening.
Good evening, I'm Lori Smith from Pierpont Road. This evening, you appointed someone to the Economic Development Committee. That's the reason why I'm here tonight. I was watching their minutes the other day, and they were talking about a Parks and Recreation Committee. As you know, I had been co-chair for that committee for several years, and it's a really important committee and the things that they can do for this community. I was just wondering where you stand on that. Are you going forward with that? Because it was unclear at their meeting if they were going to take charge or if your committee was, if your board.
I think we left it with Mr. Breyer that it fell under their purview, but we were waiting for them to bring names forward, right? Because we talked about the committee that used to do the skating rink, and you were part of that.
Yes,
So we talked about them bringing names forward to us.
okay.
I thought, to be clear, I thought, Laurie, that we pointed out to John that that's not yet been approved. That portion of the plan has not yet been accepted by the Board of Selectmen. John knew that. So my assumption is that he will bring that forward at the same meeting
Right.
when they have names to bring forward.
Right. Yes, we kind of left it in his court. He's
So
supposed
the
to-
names would go to the Economic Development Committee?
Right, and he'd
Okay.
put it all together when he comes in, because that report got accepted, I don't want to say piecemeal,
In
it's not
pieces,
fair,
yeah.
but
Yeah, he's gonna make
that's
changes
kind of what
to
happened.
that.
They pushed one section through a town meeting and pushed the,
Okay, it's just that it's so important. I know the things that we did when we were on it, and it's such a void right now without that. So if
Right.
anyone's interested, they should reach out to them.
Yep.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
perfect, thank
thanks,
you.
Laurie.
Thanks, Laurie.
Town administrator report.
Anybody else?
I didn't see any other hands go up,
Is
so.
that it?
Gentlemen, a couple updates, and then The roof project is 83% complete as of this date, so it's a $364,000 project on this building. We're about $304,000 billed to date. Project should be wrapped up within the next week. There've been no problems, no issues. So, other than inconvenience to our staff with the banging, particularly on the third floor, and some odors that have that leaked into the building, as any roofing project would be, there've been no issues. There've been no change orders. So I expect the project to be wrapped up within the next week. Knock on wood that the weather is okay, and we will be done with this project on time and on budget. So that's the good news.
Anybody think of having someone fly over locally? I know there's a fellow locally that does it. I've seen his work. Fly over and take a picture of this complex and the land around it as soon as the roof is done.
Yeah, it'd be a great idea, Paul.
A drone, maybe?
There's people that do drones, real
Yeah.
estate people probably do it.
Yeah.
It'd be a great
He's
idea.
local.
I
I
got
like it.
one, but
You got one?
it's only a little one though.
So we're getting a 25-year roof. I think I've mentioned that to you at a bunch of your meetings. And at least no issues. The other thing that I wanted to bring you up to date on is the notice of intent is complete. So we're required to go through and file a notice of intent associated with the town's stormwater permit, which was originally issued by the EPA back in 2003. We're required to periodically go ahead and update it and file documentation listing what we've done in terms of stormwater initiatives in the community. We have $25,000 budgeted in the fiscal '20 budget to go towards stormwater. That's a bit more than what we've put aside in the past, because we have a couple of milestones that are coming up that Vinnie is aware of and the Conservation Commission is aware of. In 2020, we need to do a couple of things. We need mainly adopt some rules and regulations involving stormwater detection and illegal discharges. We need to deal with regulations involving erosion and sediment control, and then we need to deal with post-construction stormwater management. Those can take place in the form of either bylaws or regulations. So just kind of keep an eye on that over the next year, by June of 2020, we need to kind of go through and check those things off. And I wanted to make note of that. So the notice of intent will be filed by the end of this week. We'll put a check in the column mark and move on with the stormwater notice. Any questions on that?
Nope.
I have the draft town meeting warrant I'd like to review with you, but I would ask, Mr. Chairman, if you would allow it to go on item 9G, which is the FY 2020 budget review, and we combine that with the annual town meeting warrant, and that will allow you to proceed through other business seats. Thank you.
Any questions of the town administrator? Acceptance report is
Greg.
written.
You're welcome.
License permits, we have none. I'm sorry, around town, focusing on local business. Marie Laure Coué?
Marie-Laure Coué.
Coué, I got the last name right.
Yep.
Hi.
My grandmother's a Shellifu, so I can't,
A what?
a Shellifu, so I have a little bit of French, I can't.
Yeah.
Coet?
Coué.
Coet?
Wait,
Yeah, it's my father's last name, my last name. And he is French-Canadian, my mom's French, and then I married a Frenchman, so it's all
Now,
French,
he just
French.
said Coet.
Coué.
Coet is correct?
Yeah,
Right.
T silent.
Some people will pronounce it with the T. It's whatever you feel like.
That's-
I'm not picky.
That's how the Lebanese say it.
Just make sure you speak up, because my French ain't good.
Well, I will speak in English.
So-
Is that okay?
yeah.
Okay.
So just pardon his French, how about that?
Yeah.
With a French accent.
So first, we'd like to welcome you.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, your business is fairly well-known, and I think you're a
Well,
good,
I'm excited to hear that because being in the business, I'd never know who hears about it, and we don't have a sign out front. We have an honor system farm stand, so I hesitate to put a sign out because I would prefer it to be word of mouth.
Right.
I feel like it's a little bit safer. Maybe at some point I will have a full-fledged farm stand and employ someone there, but at this point, it's just cash and carry on your own.
that's good.
Two questions. One is, just generally, is business good?
It's hard. Cheese has very small margins. So, for instance, we buy sheep milk, we buy our milk. So we buy the sheep milk at $12 a gallon. When you compare that to grocery store prices, and our cow's milk, we buy more expensive than what you can find in the grocery store. Because farmers selling their milk to the big milk cooperatives are not able to make ends meet. And so we are conscientious of this, and we want to help farmers have a living wage from their work. So we're paying more than what you would pay in a grocery store.
Which is a great segue to my second question. Have you thought about joining the Agricultural Advisory Commission, which currently has 5 farmers on it and 3 associate members who either have farms or are interested in farming? That's a great group to get involved in.
I should probably do that, yes. Yeah.
Please think about that, because they've talked about you.
When do they meet?
I don't know. John Briere, we can get you John's number before you leave,
Okay.
John Briere.
All right.
And right now, it's functioning under the Economic Development Committee. However, we have appointed both voting members, of which there are 5, and associate members. And when they meet, it's a pretty large group.
Okay.
So it's a great conduit and network for you, for sympathetic supporters.
Right, right. Yeah. That's what I find is a lot of people are very encouraging and excited, but then when it comes down to it, my cheese is not inexpensive. And so if you don't have the budget personally to buy my cheese regularly,
Well,
it's just,
according to the people that do the state education funding formula, the ones that still are abiding by that cockamamie formula that they're using and haven't yet fully replaced,
Early.
Dudley residents have substantial disposable income, all right?
that's good to
So-
hear. I'm glad I settled here then.
Yeah, so we need to get you into that agriculture advisory network,
Okay. That sounds like a plan.
okay?
Yep.
I'm sorry to bingo.
All right, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, like how long you've been in business and why you got interested?
So we moved to Dudley in 2012. We've been in business since 2015. And before that, I decided to get into this business in about, I think it was 2010. And I went to Europe to study cheesemaking. I was there for the better part of 2 years. And I came back and looked for a farm, settled in Dudley, because I actually met with town administrators, particularly the Board of Health. Everyone was super encouraging, and we found a place that met our needs. At first, we were planning on having goats. That was actually my first love. And since starting the business, making and selling cheese, I've found that it is more than enough work to do what I'm doing now, that I don't need to add animals in. So if anyone wants access to 23 acres of open land, it's available. But then, so we've been making cheese since 2015. We sell now through 4 distributors all the way out to California. We sell at a lot of local farmers markets, and as I mentioned, the farm stand. I think someone in the audience actually was just telling me about how they have been eating our cheese at the Rose Room in Webster, so very local as well.
I've driven by there, I see their sign, they do a lot of local sourcing there, their products, which is nice.
Yeah, very good.
Mr.
John had a
Oh,
question.
Yeah, no,
Comment.
just, when I saw you in December at the Christmas fest, I'm like, we gotta get you in. I remember when you came in to first talk to us about doing this, and I'm like, wow, it's
Yes.
great with the raw milk and everything, but, just having a local ecosystem of people that will
Yeah,
know
and
about this.
As I said, I've found it very encouraging. Everyone I've spoken with at Town Hall has always
Yep.
been super excited.
And we want everybody to know, so they'll go by and,
Yeah.
Your little can will be a little heavier, with money. That's
That
what
would be
we want.
wonderful. Like I said, I mean, it's
Yeah.
it's hard to gauge interest when I don't have a sign out front. And down the street, actually, Farmer Tim does have a sign out front, and they have specific hours in the summer when they're open. So that's gotten me thinking that maybe I should try to coordinate with them.
Yeah, and they're all involved with the
Agricultural
Commission. so.
Okay, I need to
Yeah.
get on that.
At least touch base with them.
Yeah, we have the
Yeah.
locally sourced beef, the vegetables, and now the cheese. You fill a niche. So.
Exactly, yeah.
Yep.
My wife has bought some of your cheeses, and they're more expensive than they are in the store,
Yeah.
but it's like apples and oranges.
That's what I try to, it's hard
There's
to
no
explain
comparison.
that.
Apples and dump trucks,
Right.
actually, Paul. It's very unique.
It's,
Very
it
unique.
is, your cheeses are phenomenal,
Thank you.
and they're versatile,
Never tried to eat a dump truck, but
you know? They're really versatile, so
Apples and dump
if
trucks.
in fact you hook up, because one of the things the Agricultural Commission wants to do is to have a locally sourced farmer's market
Explain it.
right on this property here, for them to pick maybe 2 dates during the year based on the majority of convenient harvest times.
Oh, not a seasonal, like a one day. I think doing a one-day farmer's market is a good idea, but doing a seasonal farmer's market,
Different.
we are oversaturated with farmer's markets. We do not want to add more. In fact, we want to eliminate farmer's markets. Ideally, towns would get together and coordinate farmer's markets. So you'd have like 5 towns close together that would just have one farmer's market. I mean, sales that are happening at farmer's markets are diluted because there are too many markets and not enough customers going to those markets.
Well, we'll be
Hmm.
sure to invite other towns into what is going to be a unique and large farmer's market
One-time event.
here.
once or
Okay.
twice, depending upon the.
That's a good idea, but I would not recommend doing a season.
Well, you know what, that's why I want you on that Aggie Commission to give input.
Okay. I
Right.
will give the input.
Good, thank you.
Gary,
I've had your cheese once. It was at a social gathering in South Boston, and it was brought by a chef that's been on television. And I kind of felt silly not knowing anything about you.
What
They're like, Carrie,
chef?
you're from Dudley, right? Yeah, I'm from Dudley. Well, have you ever had this? No, I never had this. I guess they bought it at a farmer's market somewhere by Boston?
Was it was it Peter McCarthy at EVU? Because
No.
he would go to the Belmont Farmers Market and he would buy our products retail
Nope,
for his restaurant.
no,
Okay.
wasn't him.
Okay.
Wasn't him.
The
That's
point
awesome.
is, we're glad to have you in Dudley.
Well, I'm glad to
We
be
want you
here.
to use us in the Ag Commission
Okay.
to expand at a pace that you are comfortable with.
Oh my God, I want to go so much faster than I'm doing right now.
as you can see, Mr. Joseph is the, main PR cheerleader for the Ag Commission.
Yeah.
And
Is
And proud
there
of it.
is there anything else I can tell you about the business? I mean, whoa, I can tell you that we've won awards for all of our cheeses, national and regional awards. So that's
You were in the,
Okay.
it was either the Telegram or, you were in the paper not like a year or so ago, right? Maybe a year and a half, when you first started, maybe a couple of years back?
we have been written up by a number of local papers. I think you were in the Boston Globe once as like a little snippet as well.
I remember I read something in one of the papers. I get the Globe every day, it could have been the Globe.
So basically, if someone listening out here wants to buy
Right,
your
that's what I
products, where do they go? When do they go?
Um,
Are you shipping online in a box? Like
you
Omaha
know what I was
Steaks?
doing all day today was working on my website. Because right now we do have a website, but we don't have an online store, and I'd like to streamline that. Because at this point, if someone wants to ship my cheese, they have to email or call me, and people don't like doing that. They want an online store, so that's what I'm working on. Otherwise, I'd say if people are in or around Dudley, to come to the farm stand. You're gonna-
236,
236
Ramshorn
Ramshorn
Road.
Road. Yep. Yeah.
What's your website, if you want to plug it?
It's verbally.
Well, what'll happen is now we'll post online, and
People
Okay.
About
people
minutes.
watch this and it'll be in, yeah.
If you have
Okay.
minutes with your website.
So the website is www.couetfarm.com. So it's COUETFARM.com.
So you're right down the road from Farmer Tim's.
Yes, a mile from Farmer, a mile north from Farmer
Same
Tim's.
or different side?
Same side.
Because I know Katie's got, in their CSA program this year, they've gone from 60 subscriptions to 100
Yeah.
subscriptions.
Yeah, we were just talking about that recently.
We're one of them.
Nice.
Anyways, let's do it.
Well, if you're one of the members, why don't you ask her to include the cheese add-on from Couet Farm?
See,
I'm
that's,
okay with
that's
that.
called an upsell, Paul.
That's it, yeah.
I'm okay with that, let me tell you. See, you guys from Nichols thought we were just here to acknowledge you. We got other important stuff to do, you know.
And when they say cheese, they're talking about something different, like. Anybody, one sec, anybody have any questions, or anybody want to have anything to say?
I recognize your face.
She could swap you some eggs.
Yeah, she has eggs, yeah.
Eggs.
Oh, I thought you said notes.
That does her eggs. You still do your eggs, right? Yeah.
I
That's
don't know.
awesome.
Awesome.
Well, thank you for coming in.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Marie.
much.
Good to see
No,
you.
Good luck
See you
with
soon.
everything.
Thank you.
Yep.
So with the board's pleasure and a quick apology to the public hearing, I'm just going to call up the Nichols basketball team, take them out of order. So I'm sure you guys got finals and stuff you have to worry about, so. Coach, bring them up.
Good stuff.
You want me to read it, you can present it.
Either way, it's fine.
I'm not gonna present it, because you're the chair.
All right. Well, first, we'd just like to congratulate you guys. It's a heck of a run you guys had. For sure. You know, not many guys get to the level, teams get to the level you guys got to, and impressed.
Thank you.
Small school, small community. My buddy back home was texting me, "Who are these Nichols kids?" I said, "I haven't seen them play. I saw them on TV a couple times on local access, but
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I've seen some of the games. That's awesome, though. Good for you guys.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Why don't you take a moment to introduce yourselves?
Well, the little guy on the end, just before we start.
Little guy on the end.
The little guy on the end is the coach, Scott Fosher. And he's responsible for these gentlemen being here. So we've got 2 of the 3 captains here, and he's got a couple of other players that he also wants to introduce.
Yeah, so I'm Scott Fosher. I'll let these guys introduce themselves. This is my first year at Nichols. Very lucky to coach these guys. The guys that are sitting in front of you today are our seniors. For the most part, they've been here 4 years, outside of one guy. They're getting ready to graduate in a month, and in their 4-year career, they've won over 100 games. In basketball, you're only allowed to schedule 25 regular season games. So then you have postseason play and all that. So these are the guys that really, drove the program right from their freshman year. It's the reason why we had success this year and had the deep run in the NCAA tournament like we had. So let these guys go down and introduce themselves.
I'll start off. Josiah Kimball. What else can I really say? I'm from St. Johnsbury, Vermont. Been here 4 years, and I love it here. I love Nichols. I love Dudley. Love everything about it.
Major? What do you major?
Major sport management. Yeah. So I like aspirations after graduation is maybe coaching or somewhere in the sports industry. So.
Nice.
I'm Bryce Boggs, native of Boston, Massachusetts. This is actually my first year at Nichols. I'm a transfer senior, quite from the different. I transferred from a small school in Bridgewater, Virginia, about 500 miles from here, 9.5 hours, real small school, but I'm glad I decided to come to Nichols. The irony of it is my freshman, sophomore year, I actually played at Salve Regina in Newport, so Nichols wasn't too different from what I'm used to, but I'm lucky I got to share my last year with these guys and go out how we did and make some history for Dudley, so I was really appreciative of that.
And what's your major?
I'm a criminal justice major.
Me too.
Really?
Yes, yeah. Yep.
Awesome.
Empty chair.
Yeah, that's my chair.
He is a chair. Sorry, I thought you were pointing.
So I'm Marco Sechavaria. I'm from Lynn, Mass. I've been at Nichols College for 4 years now, and I'm an accounting major. I'm in the 4+1 program, and I'm fortunate enough to say that I'm going to be able to come back to Nichols and be a grad assistant and help Coach Foucher here be an assistant being assistant coach, and yeah, just trying to ride the wave. So,
So the 4+1, that's the bachelor's then your master's, right?
Yeah.
I just want to explain.
Great.
so yeah, by 2020 I'll have my bachelor's and my MSA.
Accounting major, same here, from
From
Nichols.
Nichols.
He's a Bison.
I'm Eric McLaren. I was raised in Wilmington, Delaware, but I moved to Brockton, Mass. in high school. Being here for the last 4 years has just been great. I was studying mathematics at first, and then I transferred to become a psychology major after. And I enjoyed my experience with that. After I graduate, I want to go into the field of behavioral counseling eventually, so I will have to get my master's with another two-year program. But just being here, the transition was different, but I got accustomed really quickly and just enjoyed my last 4 years here, honestly, and just had a great time with my peers and just the campus life itself.
It's impressive. Coach,
Great,
want to give us
guys.
a little overview of the season, like how it all?
So we really had a historic year. We started off the year 10-0, which was the best start in program history. Then went on another little run after that. We finished the season 28-3 overall. Won our conference championship, and then ended up going on a run in the NCAA tournament and finished in the Elite Eight. And overall, we ended up finishing in the country as an 8th ranked team in the country. So obviously, really fun group of guys. They played really hard. Type of group that came together, especially towards the end of the year. They were able to battle through a lot of adversity. We had multiple games in a row where we were down double digits going into the second half. And these guys just kept fighting and stayed together, and that allowed us to make the run that we did.
So the question, pure talent or pure coaching?
Pure talent. No question about that. It's
Say
always,
pure- well said, pure coaching.
it's
You
always
guys are good guys.
Coaching.
You guys are good
we had a
guys.
talented group and a fun group that they played hard every day, and they played hard together. So.
That's awesome.
That's all great.
So you finished up 28-3.
23, yep.
You made it to the Elite Eight. Let me say this so that you don't have to. It's unfortunate that you had the season you did and didn't get the total column inches in the Worcester Telegram that Holy Cross, which did not have a winning season, got. And I don't care if that goes public. All right?
I think they've seen enough in the little before they got up.
Absolutely. I mean, they know what I'm talking about. So we've got two of the captains here, Marcos and Arif.
Sir.
Now, you hold most of the scoring records at Nichols now.
Yeah, I do.
Now, I
Pretty
want
much
you-
every record you can
Almost every
imagine.
record you could
I want you to say the numbers slowly. What are your total career points?
My total career points are 2,519.
2,519.
That's 16th in the history of Division III basketball.
Not bad for a little guy.
Not bad. Not bad.
And
Not
Mass.
bad for a little guy. So your accomplishments were so outstanding, and you brought good press and good images to yourselves and certainly your families, to the college, and to us, the town of Dudley. So I think this might be the first time we're going to do this. And I'm going to read it and then I'm going to show it to you and not let you have it. We're going to present to you and to the team the key to the town of Dudley. Many years ago, when I was a college dean at Worcester State, I received the dean, many years ago. None of you were born, including the coach.
Including the chairman.
And
I
I will
wasn't gonna
tell
say
you
it.
that that key always has been cleaned and holds a prominent place on my wall in my office. And it says, in recognition for an outstanding season, the Nichols College men's basketball team, the coaching staff, Scott Fosha, the head coach, Colin Ritchie, Matt Strick. Is
Right, yeah.
that close?
That's right, yes.
He's not here, the hell with him. And the captains, Marcos, Arif, and Deontay Bruton. and it's noted April 2019, and I know the chairman draws great pleasure in presenting that to you.
So if you guys want to come on up, we can do a picture, come over to the front. Yeah, either way, just come around and say, get a good handshake. Coach, congratulations.
Coach, great job.
Congratulations.
Proud.
Congratulations.
Thanks, man. Great job, guys. Thanks so much. Lynn Mass, your cousins live in Lynn Mass. Great job.
How unbalanced.
What's that, 30 points a game average?
Coach,
30 points a game?
Congratulations, man.
thank you so much.
2,500 points, I know.
You guys
I'm
deserve it.
doing quick math in my head.
Sure, either. I mean, some games he went off, but.
Congratulations.
so much. Thank you.
You were a
Congratulations. You
volume
got a good-
scorer. You weren't only a volume shooter, right? I mean, you took some shots.
Thanks for coming from Brockton.
You want to get them
Good to have you here.
for the paper?
Yeah.
All right.
Get them behind us so they can...
Yeah, you guys want to come behind?
Come behind, we'll get you in the telegram. How about that?
Yeah, we'll
Good
go
for me to work on my balance.
Yeah, it's all.
I'm little, so you guys can... Stand next to me. You'll look tall.
Yeah.
I'll fill in the gap.
Thank you.
There you go.
You guys should.
You guys, yeah.
Go ahead,
Coach?
Hold that.
Where is the coach?
Yeah.
Always happening.
All right, you guys all set?
Thank you.
Four of them and one of me would have been 29 and 2, let me tell you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you
again.
for coming.
We'll submit that to the telegram.
No, she's going to do it, but I
Are you gonna do it?
want
Okay.
it for
Yeah, yeah.
our Facebook page. so.
Scott, thank you for bringing the guys in.
Thanks, guys. Doing Dudley proud.
Good luck with your graduation, gentlemen.
Good luck with your careers.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much.
I would just like, can I say one thing?
Man.
I would just like to thank you guys or the town of Dudley for all the support that you guys give us. It goes without saying, we wouldn't be able to do the things without you guys. I mean, it's a small town, but boy, can you guys fill the gym up. So I just want to say thank you, and we couldn't have done this without you guys. So
Thank you.
Good luck, you guys.
Good luck, guys. Thanks again. Okay. Nice.
Good luck with your studies.
Yeah, that's a big thing.
And the high point of the meeting.
Yeah. All right, at this time, we have to open up a public hearing.
30 points a game.
Michelle, do we have the notice to read, or just,
There was a letter that the board should have in its packet.
so just read that generic paragraph?
Yeah, I think,
I have it.
Oh, the one on your letter, or?
that's just their notification, but we also published notification also.
We generally read the notice.
We have that.
I think we're required to. Yeah, if you got one, but she's ran out.
Oh, we have the letter.
I got it. Rip it off the wall.
We have the letter.
Yeah.
There it is. Open it first.
At this point, I'll read the public hearing notice. There will be a public hearing on Monday, April 22nd, 2019, 6:35 at the Dudley Municipal Complex, 71 West Main Street, Dudley, Mass., in room 321A. The purpose of the hearing to act on a violation under Mass General Law, Chapter 138, subsection 64, draft a sports cafe, 35 Chase Ave, Dudley, Mass., serving minors. Anyone wishing to be heard in this matter should appear at this time and place designated or submit their concerns in writing. And I open the public hearing at 7:13. So at this point, with the board's pleasure, I will turn over the initial presentation to our police chief to kind of lay the reason why we're all here. So Chief Wayne, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Back on Friday, March 29th, approximately 1:05 a.m., our officers were down at Drafters Cafe. We had a call down there for erratic vehicles leaving the area. And so when the officers arrived at that time, they observed about 8 to 10 unoccupied vehicles in the parking lot, and about 10 or 12 individuals that were in a group by the main entrance. They pulled up to where the people were standing and inquired why they have not left the property since the establishment had just closed. This was at approximately 1:06 a.m. And they all claimed that they were waiting for transportation back up to the college. And shortly thereafter, 3 individuals, I won't read their names for the record, but one was all males, one was 18, 2 were 19, approached one of the officers and asked for transportation back up to the college, as they said they were abandoned by their friends there. And the officer had checked them at the time and asked for their identification, and they were all under the age of 21. So after some further investigation, it was determined that one individual had used his older brother's mass driver's license to enter the establishment. One individual had used a false Connecticut driver's license, and a third party stated he was not asked to produce any identification. All the identifications and everything were seized at that point, and then the establishment was notified later in the evening of what had occurred. I had done some follow-up subsequently with the owner, Ms. Kistner, who's here this evening, and we had some conversations on this. The individual who had claimed he did not provide an ID had in fact produced a form of an identification to them at that night. They have a scanning system in place that tracks the IDs going in and out of the place, and she was able to provide us with a copy of that individual's ID. So apparently he had a false ID on him that evening, just did not produce it on our request. So we had some I've had some conversations subsequently with Ms. Kistner about this. They're trying to certainly do everything they can in there to limit any type of service to any underage individuals. There's apparently some great deal of activity, especially through the college campuses, about false identifications being obtained through the internet and by other means. As I explained to her, I said my biggest concern at this point was the fact that if an individual was not identified or asked for an ID, that would be the biggest issue I would see. However, it appears, at least from what has been provided, that was not the case. However, there are restrictions in Massachusetts about what are acceptable forms of identification to enter an establishment or be served alcohol. So she's aware of those requirements and everything at this point. Also, what I had discussed with her was the possibility of bringing back a police officer on outside detail that we have done in the past, especially on Thursday nights or the nights that are the main causes of these times, in order to be there to assist. I've also contacted the college and sent a notice campus-wide through the Public Safety Department up there regarding any individuals that are caught with false identifications that will be seeking criminal charges against them. And also I'm trying to work with the school to assist the local businesses in town with providing a list of individuals or providing identifications of individuals who are of age 21. Back a few years ago, the college, for background purposes, used to provide all liquor establishments with a photocopy list of all the student IDs, so that the businesses would have this as a reference point when individuals walked in. If they were believed to be college students, they could be cross-referenced with a list. There were some federal restrictions that were put in place that they claimed that they could not do that any further. So a couple of suggestions I've made to them was trying to get some things in place for the fall. One would be to have the school maintain a list that the establishments could go into through a computer link and identify those individuals that are listed on campus, probably alphabetically, who are at least of the age of 21. That was one proposal. Second proposal was to clarify the IDs better, maybe color code them by age, if that was possible, or print them almost like a mass driver's license is printed, where you have one is vertical for an underage individual and one is horizontal for an individual who's at 21. So the college is looking into all those possibilities and everything at this time. So I'll submit everything to the board's discretion. I think Ms. Kistner is trying to run a good operation down there. She's aware of everything that we've expressed to her, and she's willing to make whatever changes that she's willing to make. So I'll submit this to your board for consideration and answer any questions you may have.
Greg,
Yes, sir.
anything you want to add?
Just the notice was provided to the owner of the property on April 11th, and the board has a copy of a prior violation that occurred back in January 2016. The finding of the board was to issue 2 3-day license suspensions for serving intoxicated persons under age 21. So there was a previous violation that was enacted on the license, and the board has got a copy of that letter in the packet.
Any board members have any questions for the police chief at this time?
Yeah, I have questions. I just want to finish scanning this three-page letter.
Yes.
There's a lot of information here, sorry.
The people at the table, have they identified themselves?
Well, not yet. We just letting the chief do his presentation. If the board wants to let Crystal and Teddy speak, then we'll start to speak.
You may want to look at this exhibit information.
We got it.
We got it.
Oh, okay.
So why don't you turn over to you guys for a minute and tell us who you are, you folks, well, two of them we know.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Nick Adamopoulos. I've been retained by Ms. Kistner just to come to give the presentation concerning response to the April 11th letter. We put together the packet in front of you. The proprietors, as you know, are Crystal and Ted Kistner. I'd like to echo most of the information that the police chief has provided. I'd like to start off with just going through what drafters...
Before you do that, have the other two folks introduce themselves to the cameras?
Sure.
Crystal Kistner.
Ted Kistner.
Say again?
Ted Kistner.
Thank you.
I would like to just start off with what the current ID check procedure is at drafters so that you can become aware of it. They do, starting in 2017, they did buy a scanner. It's the ID Tech brand, and it currently works on technology called Honeywell. What this scanner does is it will scan the back of an ID, takes in the individual's name, address, date of birth. It also will detect if the ID is actually scannable or not. The other thing that the ID allows is for a picture of the ID to be taken and stored so that if they have to go back, they can see what the image of the ID was. And you'll see in some of these exhibits that they actually do have the picture of the ID being handed out. Other benefits of the current scanning device in place is that if an ID comes back in the same day, it will actually alert the doorman that that ID has already been scanned in the last 24 hours, which would put the doorman on alert that there could be the ID, a duplicate ID being passed around. In this instance, that was not the case, but that is a mechanism that is in place with that software. Additionally, they can program the ID in case they ever have difficulty with an individual and they do ban him from the establishment, that individual brings an ID and it gets scanned. It would alert the doorman at that point that that individual is not supposed to be there. They also have a person on Thursdays that is a certified crowd manager. He is the individual that works the door. His credentialed and is Exhibit 2 in front of you. It shows that he is certified by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They also have 24 cameras within the establishment. At the doors, they also have one at the outside patio. They have one that sits at the arcade area at the door that shows individuals coming into the doorman. They utilize a random color wristband system on Thursday nights as a form of ID so that the bartenders know the individual came through the actual front door. The color changes on a weekly basis. This way, someone that came in last Thursday can't just come back with the same wristband and say that they already checked in with the doorman. They also have numerous employees that act as security to make sure there's no issues within the establishment, and to just make sure that there's people inside and on the patio to just oversee the crowd. Since the date at issue, they have increased the amount of people that work on Thursdays nights. They've also put a second person at the front door with the doormen, and they have also now asked for a second form of photo identification. For the most part, since the date in issue, that form of identification has been a Nichols ID. Without going into the names of the individuals, as the chief said, you'll see Exhibit 3 actually shows the 3 individuals in line to meet the doormen. The way that those individuals were identified was that one of the individuals' ID, which I believe is Exhibit 5, it was time-stamped, so Ms. Kistner was able to go back to the camera footage and match up that individual checking in and found all 3 of them.
I'm going to have you stop. All right, but I'm going to tell you why. And I know you need to justify whatever retainer you're going to receive. You've done an excellent job. The issue is that drafters has been victimized, and I had a conversation with the chief, by a technology available online where students can get pretty darn legitimate-looking fake IDs.
The Exhibit 7 in your packet.
It is.
Yes.
That's why I scanned these and I scanned the list. All right? So, it concerns me, and yet I'm grateful that Drafters has, they're really the flagship for how to deal with potential violations of the law. And I'm impressed with that, and I'm concerned that those costs are as high, unfortunately, as they are. I'm not in a position, and I'll make my point clear now, when this public hearing is over, we don't make a motion until then. But when this public hearing is over, I do not intend to penalize drafters for what has happened, because they've taken every step available up to this point to deal with with fake IDs. It's interesting that the person who didn't have an ID is also the person who said he got in without showing an ID. I would be shocked, with all of this technology, that everybody turned in an ID except this one person.
And he actually, he's actually one of the exhibits that actually shows that he did give an ID that scanned in to his name and had utilized one of the fake ID websites to make an ID.
And I believe that he told the police officer he didn't have an ID because he didn't want to turn that over.
I would.
But the other two did. I mean, you know, it's not like we were all born yesterday. So my position will be not to penalize them, but to congratulate them for what they are doing and to give them the opportunity with the chief and with Nichols, whether it's color-coded IDs for those who are under 18 or not, or some kind of ID where the date of birth cannot be smeared off or rubbed off of the Nichols ID, and that might mean an embossed ID. But I want to give them, drafters, Nichols, and the chief, the opportunity to come up with a way to combat this online technology that's available. All right? And that's, right now, that's where I sit.
Gary?
I have a question. I scanned this, read it pretty well. Phew, that was a lot. If I'm understanding this correctly, all three individuals produced identification that one scanned showed as being a valid form of identification. Is that correct?
Yes, two of them provided fake Connecticut licenses, and one provided his older brother's valid Massachusetts license.
But even though it's fake, it was somehow able to spoof.
Yeah, so if you look at the website information, it actually says that you're able to, you provide the website with your photo, your signature, and your name. Then you get to choose the date of birth that you'd like to be on the ID. And they pick an address in the state that you pick, and they put it on there. The ID is scannable, and it has a hologram in it. So when through the technology that Drafters has in place, when it scans through, as you'll see in one of the exhibits, it actually pops up with the name that's on the ID, the address, and the date of birth. And the scanner actually calculates if the individual is 21 or older immediately. So it actually takes out any user error by the doorman. But all that information, and there's a copy of it, I believe in Exhibit 4, would show you that once that ID got scanned, that individual's information populated right through it.
I saw that. So, and this device, this software, this is something you folks bought. You didn't design this. You bought this. It's in place in other places.
It's been in place since they bought the technology in 2017. So it's, you know, when this occurred, it was 13 months, 14 months old.
In hindsight, is there anything you could have done different?
No, I mean, that, if you look at the end of our letter, we said that we would take any recommendations that the board or the chief of police
That was a
had.
yes or no question.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes or no? No offense, this is
We-
great, you've got a
We did
lot of
We
wonderful information
We
here.
contacted Nichols.
Is there anything else you could have done differently that night, was the
No.
question?
No, sir.
I'm just trying to cut through to get the Reader's Digest version, because if we went through this page by page,
And
we'll all be
Mr.
sharing breakfast together.
As Mr. Joseph said, they've been very proactive since the event, trying to find a way to, make the establishment work.
Can I
No.
say something?
If you want, Kristen.
Thanks. I don't want to have to cancel the night for the kids because I don't feel that it's fair to the students that are of age that come and enjoy themselves. I do feel like they are in a safe place when they're there with us. I guess as a mother, that means something to me. I know that we're out for their best interest when they're in our establishment. We don't want to see anybody overserved, intoxicated, getting sick, fights, people getting hurt. That's why we provide so much security for them. We don't want anybody, like I said, getting injured, any kind of nonsense happening. So I feel like, I don't know, that I don't want them to have to go somewhere else where they're not going to get cared for the way that we care for them.
I was just going to say, and I'm not trying to take a contrarian position to Paul or anything, and I know you guys a lot of years, you know that. I was in the business a long time. And you have much more technology than I ever worked with as a bartender, there's no doubt about it. And accepting Paul's comments, we all know the ultimate responsibility is on the permittee. And I had a long conversation with the chief, and we are a border town. I lived in Connecticut for a while, and I remember going to a bar in Webster, and the guy wouldn't let me in. I was like 28, and the proprietor went by and said, he works at the post office, let him in, you know him. And it is hard being a border town with a college. And you are very proactive with that machine. I mean, that machine is amazing, and it's no surprise that somebody on the internet can beat it. I just want to lose fact of the, and you said, what's one of the steps? I mean, the easiest step would be, if you're at a school from out of state and you're going to be here for 4 years, you should get a mass ID card. I mean, a Nichols ID is an acceptable form of identification as a backup. And when I used to bartend, if somebody came in with a situation like that, you're not obligated to let them in, obviously, with an out-of-state ID. We all know that. I would say to the person, yeah, okay, I'll let you in, but I'm going to hold your ID at the register. So if the cops come in, I got it saying you're out of state. And if a kid said, no, you can't do that, I'd say, well, you can't come in. And you guys probably have a bigger crowd, you can't hold 50 IDs, but I just don't want to lose sight of the standards that the state puts out through tip certification, and even more, you have crowd control management certification now. Just don't want to lose sight because they game the system. Responsibility is still in the permittee. And I also want to state, and I'm glad the guys left because they credited their school, but once again, we have an establishment in town that could be paying a pretty hefty price for what happens up the hill when they're, for the want of a better word, they're unleashed on our community. And I'm sure there's people in this room, myself included, had a fake ID when we were underage. But, it happened at a different establishment in town a couple of years ago, and they inundated them with 100 people, unexpected. People walking in and out of doors, but, and I'm sure they're gonna say it's not their fault. I mean, it's their students, they pay to be there, they can't babysit them. But once again, we have an establishment that could pay the price because what goes on up there, and they just go have fun, John?
You've been here before. I was here the last time, and it always, we celebrate our Dudley businesses. I think you guys should come here someday to do what Marie did with the cheese, right? I think that's important to get your name out there too. But a lot's happened since the last time. If everybody's done this at one point in their life, maybe. And I kind of feel that our businesses are under attack. I kind of agree with Paul a little bit on this. And how do you stop it? Do you really Do you think this has happened? If the parking lot stuff didn't happen, wouldn't have known, right? Any other weekend, could this have happened? Probably, right? Could they have beat the system? I don't, you know, and nobody would ever know. So it's hard for me. I just don't want to see, and I know you've done a lot to keep everybody safe. You've always said that. You've always been upfront with that. I don't want to see you guys penalized over things that could have been done differently. If you had everything in place, and I know the responsibility does fall on you, but nope. How would you have known? You wouldn't. That's the way I see it. They wouldn't have known.
I'm gonna wait till the hearing is over.
Chief, can you go over what the mass regulations are for acceptable forms of ID?
I believe there's 7 of them, if I'm not mistaken. You have a driver's license, an ID card, a mass ID card, a passport, military ID, and there's 1 or 2 others I don't have.
Passport card?
Mass liquor ID or mass ID, because there's a mass identification card, there's a mass liquor ID card, driver's license, passport, military ID, and there's 1 other.
Passport card.
Passport card. So I think those are the main ones that you look at for Massachusetts. I think you're right. The big issue, and that's what we try to work with all of our businesses, are you're a border town, and so you're going to be dealing with licenses from predominantly Connecticut. However, you are correct. It is the establishment's responsibility if you're going to accept an out-of-state ID. You're accepting that at that face value. I have spoken with Ms. Kistner, and so we would make arrangements to have police officers there on Thursday nights, like we did in the past, for the next couple of weeks until the school is out. And my plan is to work with the college to try to get some things in place for the fall that would help all the businesses in town. And so that, again, if we have any issues like this in the future, we eliminate a lot of those possibilities in order to help the businesses get there.
Mr. Massey?
Mr. Chairman, so, Crystal, do you guys think that you're the only ones of all the establishments in town that actually utilize this system? Were you guys like a leader in that respect?
Which system are you referring to,
Yeah.
the scanning system?
Yes.
I'm not aware that anybody else has one in Webster or Dudley that I've ever seen.
Okay.
When Nichols first started coming to our establishment in 2017, I think it was only the second week that they were there, I went out and bought it immediately for this purpose. And it's not, tell you what, they're winning with a much cheaper thing than we have.
So Chief, just to hit the bullet
Thanks.
points from the presentation, the individuals who we're not going to name made false statements to the offices when they said they weren't carded, weren't scanned.
One said that.
One said that, yeah.
Right, and then one said I didn't have an ID, and they clearly
That's the one.
One said one produced his brother's license, one produced a false ID, and one said he was not asked for anything.
Right, but they clearly show in their still images that
One
everybody.
individual that said he did not have his identification with him was one of the individuals. They provided a copy of the scanned
Yeah.
ID, so he did
But
actually.
he had to present
He did
something.
actually produce something. What he had done with it after that, I'm not sure.
And then they utilized a nice ride back to school, and one got confiscated and destroyed, and one got confiscated, and maybe you have a magistrate hearing, we're not sure even.
Yes, that's why I've addressed it with all my officers, and again, I addressed it with the college, that we have to do something to kind of quell this activity, so if anyone's caught with them, we're certainly going to charge them criminally. And so they'll face minimums, fines, could be a felony depending on what you have for a license or an ID. But in most cases, you're going to probably also have a license suspension for anywhere from 6 months to a year, so.
And I know you have, obviously work with the public safety up at Nichols. Did we get any, we being the town, irregardless of your idea about the colored IDs, we talked about different underage, did we get any other positive feedback from the college saying, besides Jack, saying, we're going to work, we'll do our
Yes, I've
best?
talked to the student government officials up there as well, and they're receptive to that, because they understand that what we used to have was a very effective system in the past, where all the IDs, copies were provided to liquor establishments. but they're just hesitant with the federal regulations. So my thought process with them was to take advantage of something that has an easier method here, where each establishment can be provided with a link that goes right to their website, that they can get on with his list of individuals alphabetically, however it's listed, that are over the age of 21, that they can update weekly. And so businesses could print that out, or at least just have some type of visual access to it in some way. That's one method to do it. And then again, I'd like to work with them to modify the IDs. I'd like to find out what other college campuses do. So I'm in the process of reaching out to some of the chiefs that I work through, the campus police departments, and try to figure out what they do on their campuses to do that. So there's got to be some cost-effective methods to provide something a little bit better.
So can we agree on one thing? A Nichols ID is not a good second form of ID.
Okay.
You know?
Hard thing is, though, I mean,
Embossed.
and to their defense, it's just like the counselor had brought up, you're bringing something forward, a person's name and probably address, and so the school ID is very similar to that one. However, if there is something with the date of birth, if it was smudged out, or something else happened to it, or was in some way scraped down, or something else had taken place, that should be a flag. But they can also, again, produce another thing that, unless you have something that has your date of birth on it in another way, I can provide you with another card or another credit card, or whatever it is that has my name on it, and here's something there. So that is a challenge. And not a lot of people, I don't think, have another official ID with their date of birth on it, which is another type thing, a photo ID with a date of birth. You know, unless you have a firearms card, or unless you have something like that.
Yep.
Mr. Massey?
I mean, these kids had a lot of guts. I want to say something else, but they had a lot of guts. You know, walked in, scanned, did their thing, left. I mean, nobody got hurt, but I'm like, we're here, right? I mean, people got to really think. I mean, it's nice I can say that now. I mean, I wasn't, you know, everybody schemes when they're that age, but when you can hurt a business in town, I mean, I won't stand for that. We're all up here celebrating businesses today and the school at the same time, and you're here, so I have a problem with that.
And then how about having the Stones asking for a ride?
And lying to
Part of me is like, I want to bring it. Guys, wow. I mean, what else do you want to tell me about yourselves? Lion police?
I think, Mr. Chairman, too.
Speaking of dump trucks.
I would tell, I've told Ms. Kister, and I'd tell anybody that runs an establishment, if you have any doubt, any question, don't allow them in. If something is, you know, even if it might seem all legitimate, if you have a question about that at all, just like you said, you're not under any obligation to have somebody enter your establishment if you question the IDs. So that's one thing to do.
And that's kind of, I'll follow up with that, Mr. Chairman, if I may. And has that happened? You guys said, yep, sorry, if you have caught it, they're gone, right?
Absolutely.
All right. How often does that happen? Just so
Not
everybody-
very, the Thursday nights are the only time that we really have a younger crowd that comes by.
Yeah.
We generally average anywhere from 28 to 40s. So it's not a normal
Right.
issue for us. It's more so just the one night of the week when the kids come down from school.
It's about a 2.5-hour period of the week that all this happens, and that's it. They're there for 2 hours.
Fair enough.
Greg, anything you want to add?
Oh,
Chief, you good?
I'm good.
Counselor?
Yes, sir.
Guys? Board members?
You sure you're good? I'm kidding.
He's good.
All right, this time I will close the public hearing at 7:43. So declare it closed. What is the board's pleasure? Mr. Joseph?
First, for the record, Attorney Adamopoulos, you've earned your money. You've done a nice job.
Thank you, sir.
It's a thorough job.
Thank you.
And I didn't realize that you and your partner at Lakeshore Legal LLC is in Webster.
It is, yes.
That's a free plug, don't mention it,
Thank you.
all right? But I am impressed with what you've done.
Thank you very much.
Number two, I can't imagine that Crystal and her staff could have done any more than what they've already done. So, I wish to see a couple of things. Number one, I wish to see us issue a pass on this particular incident from March. And secondly, I want to see before he leaves, Greg take in information and that there be joint efforts and suggestions and proposal between the chief, drafters, and Nichols College as to what improvements they can make effective the next school year, and for the chief and drafters to come up with a proposal to the town administrator, ultimately to the board, as to what will be done between now and the end of the school year to tighten things up. I'm not telling you what to do. You've got the brains and the reasons for making sure something gets done right. You've got the knowledge, and Greg will be our conduit. So with that, I formally move that we give drafters a pass on the incident under question, which is what, March 19th?
March
March
29th.
29th.
March 29th.
Second.
That's my motion.
Third.
Well, I just want the caveat again out there that next time it may not be drafters, but people have to ultimately understand what goes on is their responsibility. It's great that we're supporting a local business because their efforts to do, since the last time they were here, they've been 100% off the
Yep.
radar.
And busy.
And busy. But it has to, it has to be, it can't be emphasized enough for other permittees that are probably gonna watch this or read about this and use something, if they ever have to come in, we just gotta be firm.
And you know what, Stephen? In plain English, let them do what these people are doing.
You know what,
And then we'll deal with that on a case-by-case basis.
You know what, Mr. Joseph, I agree, but in 2008, when the Board of Selectmen redid their matrix, I believe you were the chairman, and it was, at that point, I wasn't ruling on alcohol issues. It was specifically, I think Mr. DiDonato was the selectman at the time. The board removed warnings, the board removed discretion, because if you read the matrix, nowhere on the matrix does it say the board can take discretion to go against their policy. So we either have to look at that too and tighten that up, or generalize the language. This is a unique situation based on the steps you guys have already been proactive, based on the chief, with his being proactive. I just gotta be clear, and I understand, Paul, you're talking about case by case, but
And you're right, Stephen.
it does not say in our matrix that we take it case by case.
You've got to, and you're absolutely right, but you know what the power of this board is? The power of this board is its wisdom. And in its wisdom, the board needs to avoid always acting anally. We need to look at the circumstances and the situation. And I make no apologies for the motion, and I'm not saying that you're suggesting it, but I make no apologies for the motion. I think it's the wise thing to do in this case, at this time, under these circumstances.
Mr. Massey?
Let me just add, I mean, this is my 7th year, and, you know, some of the toughest meetings we've had is when we've had Crystal and some of the other establishments come before us, and you're right, there is no warning, this is probably, we have one of the toughest things there, and we've never been afraid to act, even when it hurt us to do that, and hurt people, so this, maybe it is wisdom, maybe it's just knowing that you've done what you needed to do, and this wasn't a blatant, like, yeah, right, here you go, right, this wasn't like that, but this board has always taken action when it needed to, in the negative, so, for the other establishments that Mr. Sullivan might be talking about.
Gary, good?
I'd just like to say, this isn't like a restaurant that you do a surprise visit and there's code violations that they were in 100% control over, like temperatures not being right or not being clean. This is someone coming to your business trying to scam you. and you get hurt by that. And what I've seen here, and I agree with what Mr. Sullivan, the chairman, said about matrix, and we've got to stick to it. But you've got so much here that shows that you tried to avoid this. I mean, you're the only place I know of outside of Worcester or Boston that has the scanning license thing that says if it's legit or not. And this spoofs that and fools it into making it think that it's real. I mean, it's scary, and I don't see where you could have done something differently. I don't see, unless you just start refusing service to people. I'm good.
Stephen, I hope to see a process in place where people, chief, can and will be caught and will be processed and will pay a $500 fine and will lose their license for 1 year. And I ask that the town aggressively pursue that in any establishment where an intentionally false online ID is presented and confiscated and proven to be such. It won't take many.
Just gonna let Albert speak for a minute, even though we're in the middle of a motion. Come on up, Albert.
We got space over here.
Yeah.
Or there.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, there.
So in my school, we have a special Wi-Fi system where we can block certain websites, like eBay, for example, is blocked on the Dudley Charlton Wi-Fi. I don't know if that's applicable to Nichols College, perhaps, blocking just being one more step of precaution to, what was it, a website that they got it off of, because I guarantee you those kids don't want to waste their data. They're just going to go right to the Wi-Fi. I don't know if that's an idea that can be.
It'd be one thing, but it's really simple just to hit the Wi-Fi button, go to
Yeah,
cellular,
but I mean,
buy it, wherever they want.
You know,
Good thought, though.
I mean, what's one more barrier to keep them from not doing it, you know? Because
Slightly more difficult.
It's sadly to say the days of a paper license where you could take a razor blade and cut out one date.
Is that how you did it, Mr. Joseph?
And take the razor blade to another date, and then just carefully lift them up and
Watched
switch
it done.
them,
I've watched it being done.
and have a false ID. And you could laminate it until they told you you couldn't laminate it, and then that method of doing it stopped.
All by candy.
At least that's what I've been told.
Wow.
And then him and Abraham Lincoln used to write on the shovel, study for the law exam. Sorry about this.
It's amazing.
Thank you, Al. That was good.
Thanks,
Good
Al.
idea.
So we have a motion and a second to, and I believe the phraseology was give a pass.
Can we just say take no action?
Take no action.
That's more professional. I like that.
No
But
finding.
let
You
the
agree to
record,
change it
Yeah.
to that?
Motion is to take no action.
with the record reflecting that
No
drafters, and by extension, Crystal, is proactive with their scanner. I mean, I want that in the record, so
With the understanding, and I want them to agree before they leave, everybody, except Nichols, who isn't here, to agree to do the additional things that need to be done
Yeah.
just for the rest of this year, and then a better, longer-range plan, all three, starting for the next school year.
anything
You
further
okay?
from the board? Fire and
Willing to
EMS,
help out any way we can.
Fire Chief?
I just had something real quick. I just wanted to let you know that we work with all the establishments with the crowd manager and fire prevention issues, and I can say that this establishment has been one of the easier establishments to work with as far as renewal and having the proper paperwork. I mean, we go through it every year, Paul and I, and they've been fantastic. If there was any problems, they fix them right away. I can't say the same for everybody else.
Right, well, we know that.
Maybe this hearing will incentivize others to get the
Certainly
scanning
should,
system.
Mr. Saganowicz.
Ready for a vote?
All in favor, state aye.
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 Unanimous.
4-0 vote.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Hey, guys.
Thank you so
Hey.
much.
Take care.
Crystal.
Board of Health Earth Day table from 4/11/19.
Speaking of Earth Day, we're gonna have to recycle this.
Now, before they start their proposal, can we acknowledge the good work that the Board of Health has done in replacing Harrington Preventive Services, which they've now stopped, and immediately getting us over to a nurse who is a public health nurse, and having her come in and cover, and there's no gap in, no lapse in the service. We appreciate you guys going out and getting that done.
So Jen, I think how this all came to be 2 weeks ago, we talked about Earth Day, how we're gonna handle it, and I guess maybe unfortunately asked a question about, to the superintendent, what about the yellow bags? Because I know the previous one used to,
I have to say, I heard about this after the meeting, and I was actually quite shocked because for 10 years that I've been involved in Earth Day, we've always just submitted the request. No one's ever been here. And then I get that this has blown up into this huge thing, and you're questioning whether we're ready for it, if we have this. And I can assure you, I've worked on Earth Day for 10 years. I've been on the board for 10 years. We did everything as we have. I can explain to you how we ended up with the situation of using the recycling center. I can explain to you how when people come and pick up a bag, we tell them what can be in it, what can't be in it, what can be disposed. We go through the whole process with them. It's basically due to budgets that we don't have a dumpster. For many years, we did have the money, then the highway department was kicking in, and then push came to shove, there was no money for a dumpster, so we started to use the recycling center. They come to us at the town highway garage. They have to sign up to let us know where they're cleaning. We issue things out to them, we issue bags, we go over what they can be picked up, what can't be picked up, what we cannot dispose of, no hazardous materials, all of that information. We make sure that they come back to us to check in that the trash has been brought back in, the road has been cleaned, and everything's been accounted for. That being said, I know there was a question about asking Casella for a dumpster. It would be a violation of the Code of Ethics for the Board of Health to ask Casella to donate a dumpster when the Board of Health licenses Casella, Pratt, all of these trash companies to run their trucks through this town. They have to file a license with us every year. So we could not ask for a donation. That would not look well upon,
Let me interrupt, Jen.
Yeah.
Please. I'm the one that made the stink. I take responsibility for that. I find, and if you look at the tape, I find no fault
Oh, no,
with how the highway, with how Board of Health has done it in the past. The problem I had was that the highway superintendent was being asked questions he couldn't answer. And there was nobody here from the Board of Health that could provide the answers to him or to us. And then in the course, if you look at the tape, conversation, there's a lot that nobody knew.
right.
So that's when the question of why can't. Now, let me tell you something. You don't have to ask Casella or anybody else or Al's to donate a dumpster. The town administrator can, the highway department can, or a town that does not contract or approve them can do so and even solicit donations to cover half the cost. It doesn't have to be you guys.
Well, I can tell you that we do apply for a grant every year through the Last Green Valley, which they have a grant available up to $500 to help with Earth Day. But specifically in their grant, it states, used for supplies for Earth Day, not to be used towards the cost of a dumpster. But we get our bags because the state stopped paying for they used to give us free trash bags, the yellow bags. The state stopped providing that. Everything was cut down. So now the Last Green Valley, we submit in, they provide us with the trash bags, the gloves, the vests, hand sanitizer, all the necessary things, the pickers, the things that we've had over the years. they give us money towards purchasing all of that for Earth Day.
And they still do that?
They do that, yep, we have sent in a request. The thing is it's not just, oh, let's send this in and they're gonna give us money. We have to document everything that we use. We have to document all the roads we clean, the amount of trash that's picked up to submit back in.
You do that in bags or numbers of
Do it in
bags?
bags,
Okay.
yeah.
Can I ask this question? Greg, does the recycling center generate enough funds from its fees and its memberships to cover some of the costs that aren't covered by grant or the state for the Earth Day cleanup?
Before you answer that, I think we're going down a wrong path, because then.
Okay.
Then the fire chief, who's been coordinating that hazardous waste with the place in Sutton, is probably gonna wanna know, can the recycling center subsidize that too?
Well,
And I'm
no,
not- and wait,
because,
and
yeah,
I'm
but
not-
that's a big cost.
5,000. And I'm not a recycle center user, and I'm sure everybody wants a clean town. But I think it would kinda, I know it's a small amount, would defeat the purpose of paying a fee to drop your trash off to help
I know.
subsidize Earth Day, because I think he'd be next. I mean, you know, in all honesty, that's probably as equal a cause. I mean, Earth Day is obviously not just Dudley, but that'd be next, 5,000 for that. I'm just, where we've been down the road before about the fees at the recycling center, and previous selectmen wanted to do away with it and go to a single hauler. I just think utilizing money from the recycling center.
Yeah, see, I don't
subsidize.
agree.
That's why we have disagreements.
I think
I would gladly give $5,000 towards the hazardous waste.
Earth Day cleans up virtually the entire town that they can get to, depending on the number of volunteers. I would think that the people who do have recycling placards would be proud of that and wouldn't mind any money from their fees. By the way, the fees are not just to have the decal. The fees are also if you have to dump extra things. So I'd like to see us look at that for subsidizing the cost of the Earth Day cleanup. There's no way it's going to amount to a $5,000 room or extra pot that we have in there that can afford $5,000 for what Dean wants to do. We need to look at a different source for that kind of thing. So I don't think it's the wrong path to go down.
I do, because someone's gonna come and say, we wanna clean, I'm making up, don't pick on me, folks, we wanna do the Little League field, which we always help out, we send a highway truck up there.
Always.
Can you send a few extra bucks up there, we can have, you know, John Tree Cutter come back and trim back, you know, I'm just saying, it's a noble cause, I'm not, if I was
Okay.
sitting over there, I think it's a great idea. Sitting over here where every dollar and penny and everything is scrutinized, I mean, hey, you guys do what you want, you wanna take a motion to send
I can
$500?
state
No, I'm not at that point, Stephen, by any means.
I have put in my budget, again, and I understand budgets are tight, but I have put in along that line that this is something that we did have years ago, but I do understand. But just so you know, we have spent countless hours trying to research ways to do this without it breaking the small budget that the Board of Health has to begin with. You know, we've stopped doing things because of budget cuts, as every department has. I understand that. But, so if you have an idea of how we can, this was the best idea that we could come up with in that short time frame. Was, last year we were kind of, what are we gonna do? Earth Day was here, budgets were closed. Okay, well, we're gonna use, we talked with Danny last year, we'll use the recycling center. Everything came through us, went down there so that we made sure everything was good. Didn't have time to get it in the budget last year for the dumpster, not that I understand, no big deal. So we said, well, people were starting to call asking about Earth Day back in January. Are you gonna be doing it? We're like, okay, we're probably gonna be doing it the same way. I reached out to Vinny, said, I explained, I'm there the whole time. We do it that morning, 8 to 12, making sure that nobody's bringing anything, You know, if somebody comes with something, we're like, "I'm sorry, we can't take that." So,
How many volunteers did you have?
last year, we had about 10 different groups with an average of 5 to 6 in each group. This year, we have about 6 or 7 groups signed up so far. The Boy Scouts did do theirs last weekend or the weekend before because that was in their schedule, but they did the road cleanup and, you know, as part of Earth Day, we have other church groups and school groups coming out to do it. We do have people who do look forward to this and have come and already picked up their bags.
Mr. Massey.
So let the record show, this is why I made the motion 2 weeks ago to make sure this went on as planned, because I knew there was a lot of work that went into it. And sometimes, you know, when we sit up here, we can't just manage every little thing from every little department and assume that the system will work, because it's worked every year. So I made a motion that wanted you guys to come in and explain that, Jan. But things went on as planned, right?
Anytime that I'm more than happy. It's just I had people calling me saying,
Yeah.
"What's going on?
Right.
I'm like," so I came in and watched the meeting and said, "Okay, now I know what's going on."
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to move that we approve
We already
the,
did. We already approved it 2 weeks ago, conditional to her coming in here.
So there is no motion required.
I don't think so. Michelle?
Did we vote on it? Because it says,
We voted on it.
it says here it's tabled.
No.
You wanted, it was tabled because you wanted
I'm
them
just
to
saying,
come in
it's
and...
tabled. Tabled usually means no vote. Was taken.
We voted.
Contingent upon
Just contingent-
their attendance.
Yep, coming in and explaining to everybody.
John Massey, motion to grant approval for the Board of Health to hold Earth Day, April 26th, even a blind nut finds a squirrel. April 27, 2019, from 8 to 12 at the Highway Barn on Indian Road, Garage, on the condition that the members of the Board of Health meet with the TA to make sure the conditions are met, and for them to attend the next meeting, inform them what's going on that day. Seconded by Kerry Sigenovich Senior. Vote was 301.
Okay, so, all right.
You didn't.
So it wasn't tabled,
You
that's all I'm
abstained,
saying.
yeah.
You
I
got
thought
it,
it was.
Jen.
I think it
thought
was
the motion
them, the fact
tabled.
that they had to come in here
You
today.
got it, Jen.
But fine.
Okay,
We're
thanks,
fine.
Jen.
Thank you very much.
Great job,
Thanks
Board
for
of
coming
Health.
in, Jen.
Hi, Ted.
Ted, you too. I know she sent her up to take the heat, though. You just kind of lurked in the back, hiding behind Albert.
Hiding behind Al.
Chair will ask for unanimous consent to close the town hall on Thursday, May 9, 2019, 4 p.m., so employees may attend a retirement party.
A retirement celebration
So
moved.
Celebration.
for Aura, okay.
So moved.
Thank you.
So
Board
moved.
Chair will just entertain unanimous consent to hold a candidates' night on Thursday, May 23rd, 2019, 6:30 in room 321A, moderator to be determined.
Yes.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Third.
All in favor?
Aye.
Police chief, sergeant vacancy, full-time office opening as of June 1st, 2019.
Candidates.
We just did that. That's what we
Oh,
voted.
here's something in
Yeah, we
here.
did the town hall closure.
That was unanimous consent.
Oh, we didn't have to vote? Oh, sorry. My bad.
Greg,
Yes, sir.
well, you had comments on this last time. Has your opinion changed, or?
Yeah, I think that the town has the ability to support the proposal that's here and bringing on a new officer on or about June 1st. I sat down, I met privately with the chief. We had a discussion about budget, and we reached an agreement that we should be able to move forward.
Chair will entertain permission to grant the police chief's request to, A, announce a sergeant's vacancy.
So moved.
Made by Mr. Massey, second by Mr. Sigenovich. Any questions for the chief?
That'd just be effective July 1st, I believe, Mr. Chairman, the full-time would go into effect July 1st of this year.
Is that part of the motion?
Amended?
Yes.
Thank you.
Gary?
Thank you,
Yes.
chief.
Amended to July 1st. All in favor, state aye.
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 Chair will entertain a motion to grant the chief's second request to declare a full-time opening on the department for patrol effective June 1st, 2019.
So
Made.
moved.
Second.
Mr. Sigenovich, Mr. Joseph. Any further questions, chief?
Yeah, and all I'll do with that one, Mr. Chairman, is I would, it's certainly a member of our current reserve staff, so I would, I'll come back to the board with a name when that all comes into effect. And we'll keep the person on as a reserve officer until the, such time as the academy starts, and then they will be designated as a student officer to begin their training. It's just for probationary purposes and things from there, but they'll work a full-time schedule and everything from that point.
Mr. Marcy?
And that's why it fits into the budget, right, because of that, like you said. Okay,
Yes.
that's all I wanted to hear.
Yes,
Perfect.
thank you to the administrator, too, publicly for meeting with me on that, and it was a good discussion, we reached a good resolution.
Okay.
Greg?
Yeah, I'm good.
All in favor,
Good.
state aye.
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 Unanimous. Chief would just keep us apprised of the process when
Yes.
Chief, the sergeant, I mean.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Greg, debt exclusion question for annual town election, June 10th, 2019.
So, yeah, the request before the board is to consider a debt exclusion in the amount of $450,000 at the election on June 10th. I think I mentioned to you previously, the town has retired debt related to the schools totaling $577,216. So the last payment of that exempt debt is in this fiscal year. So that drops off the books, and basically, we're looking to replace that with new debt and do it in the form of an exclusion. I had previously mentioned to you the roof project is something that we're working on right now, and that's $364,000, and the HVAC system work that was done last summer was $100,000. So those are the two projects that are covered under the debt exclusion. We've done the work, but we don't necessarily have the flexibility to be able to pay off that debt without the assistance of an exclusion. And I would just wanted to run through some numbers, and I was over here, wasn't fumbling around. I wanted to calculate out what the impact is on the tax rate and on the property owners. So we would estimate that if we did a 5-year pay down on the $450,000, it would cost about 9.7 cents on the tax rate. And in terms of what that means for the taxpayer, an average single-family home value of $255,522 means that the average yearly impact, if this debt exclusion passes, is just under $25, $24.99.
How much? Again?
$24.99, Paul.
$2.
5 years.
5 years.
$2 a month,
5 years. Yep. And so what we would do is we'd
60 cents a day.
we do a pay down, and we would get relief in terms of
6 cents a day.
having to pay for the interest, principal and interest costs. We're replacing debt that's coming off the books, which makes sense that we do so. You'll find out when we go through the budget, the amount of revenues, because we're dropping off that exempt debt, our revenues are actually flat, because that debt drops off the books. So when you look at it and you say you're basically flat revenues, the reason why is we're dropping that $567,000 off the books.
So does this not, Mr. Chairman, does this not require a figure?
No, so it does not require a figure.
So bear with me, please.
Yeah.
I'm asking then, through the chairman, to you, Greg, this is a blind approval with no idea of what it's going to cost?
So what we'll do is we'll provide, if you were to approve, we would provide supplemental information that would have to be approved by the Board of Registrars and the town clerk, so that when people come in to vote, they have an understanding of what the cost implications are. But the oddity in the statute, Paul, is the statute doesn't permit you to put a dollar amount in when you're doing a debt exclusion.
So this would be the way it would go on the ballot, but there would be a narrative.
There would be.
Okay.
I think it's important for people to understand that it's money that would be borrowed for a very short period of time. I mentioned to you 5 years, and the average impact is about $25.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So I also wanted to state, the impetus behind this started in the treasurer's office. And I had the opportunity to sit in on a meeting with the town administrator, the treasurer, and the town accountant at one point, not too long ago, when we were discussing this. So, when people at home hear debt exclusion, right away they figure we're going willy-nilly on something, or we're gonna try to spend all kinds of funds. But as Greg, I think, put it eloquently, just very simple. it's replacing debt that exists almost dollar for dollar. It breaks down to about 6 cents a day.
And there's zero money that goes toward the budget. So
Right.
people question whether there's money that goes toward the budget. Not a dollar of this goes toward the budget, it all goes toward payment of debt. And when the debt is retired, it falls off the books.
Right, and if somehow 3.5 years, 4 years from now, we retire it a year early, we can certainly do that.
Yeah, I'm hoping we can do it, like you said, no more than 5 years.
Right.
Mr. Chairman?
Well,
I also want to make note that Jason Blue, who writes the summary article at the Webster Times for our meetings, apologized profusely for the incorrect headline in the article on the last Webster Times, which said that we were going for an override. And he has taken all reasonable steps to fix that so that people understand it is not an override. It's a debt exclusion. He does know the difference, and I don't think he could have apologized any more than he did. So I look forward to the Times printing a correction / retraction.
Terry.
Greg, when this, if I remember right, the roof and the HVAC system was approved at town meeting.
But yeah, May last year.
What was the funding source?
So we borrowed. So it was done in the form of a bond.
Okay.
So what we've been doing is we borrowed the money, we're paying interest-only costs.
Mhm.
What we want to do is we're obligated at a certain point to convert from interest-only to principal and interest. And we've kind of got our backs up against the wall that we need to start to be able to do that.
So I want to ask what happens if this passes? What happens if it doesn't pass?
So if it passes, then the money is, so to speak, off the books in terms of Prop 2.5, and we would begin paying. If it doesn't pass, then what we need to do is we need to develop a strategy where we will have to begin paying off this debt beginning in FY '21, principal and interest. So right now, we're only paying interest, but we'll have to begin paying principal and interest. And I'm hoping that that issue can be addressed at the fall town meeting if it doesn't pass. So what we'll need to do is budget some of our reserves to pay toward the principal and interest on this debt.
The reason why I ask is because I've been stopped quite a bit and asked from people about taxes, and you're not raising our taxes again, taxes.
Sure.
I just wanted to know what the plan was if this fails, if those people show up and vote no.
I'm fairly confident that taxes will, if nothing is done, taxes will be going down July 1. Because what's happening is we're retiring $500,000 in debt. That's coming off the books, and I mentioned to you that roughly $100,000 translates into about $25 a year. And just kind of extrapolate that number forward on $500,000, and you can see what the impact on the taxpayer is. So the impact on the resident will be modest. They'll still see a reduction in the amount that they pay, but the benefit to the town is immeasurable in terms of the fact that we get to take a capital cost and budget for it as an excluded item. And it's work that was necessary. I've talked to you many times until I'm blue in the face. With we set aside $450,000. We ended up spending $464,000. We took about $14,000 from operating budgets to be able to get a contract signed for the roof because it was important that we do so. And we get that work done to prevent damage to this building. So that's how the number lines up. And someone says, well, you did get a $450,000 exclusion, but you've had $464,000. We did, but we didn't. It's not against the borrowing. It's other money that we took aside from the budget.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Joseph?
I'm going to move that the board approve the debt exclusion question for this annual town election on June 10th, 2019. And I've labeled this document the 4/22/19 draft as presented.
Motion made.
We have someone to sign though? That's it.
I was just pointing out Mr. Clark had his hand
Seconded.
Second for discussion.
Second by Mr. Marcy, discussion. Mr. Clark?
Good evening. My name is Richard Clark, and unlike some of the gentlemen who were with you earlier today, I don't have a degree in finance or accounting. But what I understood was, at one point it was mentioned, and I think maybe somewhat facetiously, this was going to amount to 60 cents a day increases.
6
Not the
cents.
comment made?
6 cents a day.
I'm sorry?
6.
6 cents a day? Okay, and on the other hand, it was mentioned, I believe, a short time ago, subsequent to that, that there was actually going to be some tax relief to the taxpayers. I don't understand how both can be possible.
If it didn't pass, there'd be relief.
So, Mr.
That was the thought was that if one, we're talking about two different scenarios.
So,
If it
Mr.
did and if
Chairman,
it didn't.
Mr. Chairman and Mr. Clark, the town has debt that was issued back in 1999 for a capital assessment for the Dudley Charlton schools. So that debt is being retired. It was, the amount that's in the budget is $577,216. That's in this year's budget. It's not in next year's budget, because that debt is retired, and I think, as I mentioned to you, when exempt debt is retired, it falls off the books. We don't take the $577,000 and put it towards something
Okay,
else.
but-
It can't, each debt issuance needs to be dealt with separately. So failing, having this project be exempt, there would be relief provided to the taxpayers by reduction of about $577,000 in
Okay, I'm
costs.
trying to personalize this to some extent, and thinking of the individual taxpayers' books as
Sure.
opposed to the macro picture that I think you're presenting very well, actually. There will be an impact in terms of an increase in taxes, is that right?
About 9.7%, 9.7 cents on the
Okay,
tax rate.
and that would be for a 5-year period, is that
Correct.
understood? So at the end of that 5-year period, then there would be some tax relief. That would
Correct.
go away.
Correct.
Yeah, just like there was with
Would the
the
board be
school.
willing to commit to that? That
Well, it
there
has
would be
to.
that
It
relief?
has to, you have no choice.
Has to, if they vote the term of 5 years, it has
That's
to
it.
stop.
It's gone.
We have no
And
say.
there-
It's
that's
not the
it.
board, it's the people that vote.
Okay, the
We put-
people,
we put the
but
question out
the
there.
proposal going before the people, would that narrative include the stipulation that at the end of the 5 years, that additional increase that would be realized is gone?
So I think I can answer that, Mr. Clark, and Mr. Chairman, if you'd allow me. So when we go through our budgeting process, we budget all of our revenues, and one of the items that we isolate is called debt/capital exclusion. So it's taxation, new growth, debt and capital exclusions and others. So it's not put in the total amount of revenue that the town has as a total number. It's isolated. And due to the fact that it's isolated, and we're under the law, we have to report to the Department of Revenue every single year about what exempt debt we're paying. So we would risk not having our tax rate approved if we decided to pull some hanky-panky. Can't do it. You can't do it.
All right. I'm just looking at writing a check to pay
Sure.
taxes and what the impact is going to be on that. And however you manage to put that into the accounting picture as far as the column that it happens to fall into,
Yeah.
where does that go in terms of the taxpayer? Is he writing a bigger check? Is he writing a smaller check? Is he writing the same check? Is it a check that's going to be bigger for 5 years, and is it going to go down after that 5-year period of time? And that seems to be the sense of what I'm getting out of this, but I would hope that that somehow finds its way, if you will, into the narrative that goes on the ballot, if it gets that far. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Good point.
Well, as Greg stated, the narrative wouldn't be on the ballot, it'd be handed out.
Yeah, I think we have to be kind of careful. We have to have it available. We can't force it on people. It might be a separate pile when people come into the building. They can review it and receive that information, but we have to be careful about force feeding the stuff. There's all types of rules and laws that says you can't unduly influence people at a ballot. So we make it available. We put it on our website. We give people factual information that they need to make a decision.
Greg, can you, you or the treasurer, or together, can you guys ensure that as Mr. Joseph just stated, the headline was incorrect, which they're going to correct, but can't put the genie back in the bottle? Can you put something together that goes out as like a press release, or maybe have Mr. Blue come in and, or do a Q&A with him so we can get the proper information out there?
Yeah, so we We saw the headline last week, and we did some posts on social media that then indicated the town was doing a debt exclusion, not an override. I know it went out there. I saw it out there myself when I looked. I know it was done on Twitter. I'm assuming it was done on Facebook too. So we've taken kind of a proactive approach, but you're right. Once the genie is out of the bottle, and now people get confused and they say that they don't really know what's being done, and they have a tendency to vote no. So I have a saying that you're only as strong as your weakest link. And in this case, the weakest link was not us, it was someone outside of town hall that decided to, and I'm not blaming Jason at all. Someone in his group decided to write an headline that was sensational, but it was incorrect.
Any other questions of the town administrator? Anything from the public, department heads? Have a motion and a second. Call to a vote. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
No.
2-2.
Okay, doesn't pass that.
Doesn't pass. Next on the agenda, fiscal year 2020 budget review.
Budget, so if you could take a look at the packet, please. The FAA is going to be meeting on Thursday, so we will have their recommendations after their meeting on Thursday. We do not have one as of today. I'd like to start off with the sheet that starts off with Appendix A, bottom line, FY 2020 budget looks like this. Oops. Looks like this.
Oh, yeah.
Paul?
Sorry? I just started to read the narrative. Which one are you doing?
So just to indicate that we,
Nope, the other one you said. Yep.
at this time, we went through and we made $166,000 in reductions to town budgets. We had to do that to achieve a balanced budget. If you total up the reductions in the water department and sewer department budgets, the total amount of reductions to achieve a balanced budget was $167,367. We needed to do that to balance, and we did do that successfully. So we do have a balanced budget as we sit here today. But as I've mentioned to you before, we hopefully can bring those numbers back for consideration at the fall town meeting. If you want to turn to the second page.
I want to ask a question about the significance and the impact on the budget and on this document of the additional state aid to schools, education, that the governor and the House have proposed.
Yep.
So it's kind of skewed.
And I don't know what that impact is, but our budget is likely to be in limbo until that state budget is completed.
My understanding is the numbers that are here represent the worst case. So if you look at the numbers from both Dudley, Charlton, DC schools, and Bay Path, those represent the amounts that were given and voted by their school committees. So those would be the best numbers that we have to go by, Paul, as of this date, and they consider what the governor had proposed in his budget for aid to cities and towns. If that's increased, then perhaps the assessments would go down.
Okay.
Okay. So, if we could turn to page 2, it says Budget 2020 Overview. And this is the sheet that when Mr. Clark had asked me where does the debt and the capital exclusion show up, you can see that if you look at line A6, you'll see the debt exclusion number of $1,548,263 for FY20. And you can see that the number in FY 2019, which is the present fiscal year, is $1,987,098. So it does prove out the fact that we do show our revenues separately, The total amount in new revenue that we had to go toward the budget, not including any of the exclusions, was about $438,000. Not a lot of money, and really not much different than what we've had in the past. But when you consider the increases in the budget, I'm going to go through a couple of line items to kind of illustrate the fact that $438,000 goes fairly quickly. The Bay Path budget increase is $118,832, and that is due to a shift in the number of students that attend that district from Dudley. There were some additional students, and they still require funding at the minimum required contribution by the state. But that shift in student population means that Dudley's proportional share of the Bay Path budget increases, and that increase amounts to $118,832. The second and third items in the budget that were significant, and I'd like to point out that they were costs, were our employee benefits item. Our health insurance was up $57,397, and that was up mainly due to people coming on the books as new employees and other people retiring, so that the change in the number of employees actually grows as people leave service and stay on the plan, and new people come on to replace them. So that's $57,397. I think it was pointed out at an earlier meeting, there's no increase in, percentage increase in the group insurance due to the cooperation of our employees. We had a 0% increase in that line item, but that's strictly due to that item in itself. And then the final item that we have a significant increase in is our pensions. So our pension obligations, we are a member of the Worcester Regional Retirement System, and those costs are up about $77,000 for next year. So if you take up those three line items, they total $252,904, and let's just say $253,000, meaning that we have about $167,000 for all other town departments and services. And that's the most telling point that I wanted you to be aware of, is although our budget grows by $438,000, the amount that we put toward particular line items is fairly limited. So we have about $168,000 in money to distribute to all of our departments, to pay our contractual increases and our contractual obligations, to pay for our non-exempt debt, and to pay for other items in the budget that are not insignificant. And you can see again on that first sheet what the totals of the departmental budgets would be. For the most part, the departments came in, and they came in with conservative budgets. We did provide for I mentioned to you contractual increases for our union employees. We did fund those. And we also did put in a 2% COLA fiscal year 2020 for our non-union employees. The total cost of that is about $12,000. And I think we've had some stability in our workforce by recognizing the fact that we want to pay our employees fairly. So there is a 2% cost of living increase that's built into the budget. If you could kind of stick with page 2, I could go through some of these other revenue categories, because this really is a revenue-driven budget. And starting at the top, and if you look at the right-hand column, we budget an amount for new growth. And in this case, we put in the sum of $125,000. And you may say to me, where does that number come from? The average new growth over the past 5 years has been $123,643. So the number goes up, the number goes down, and you can see the amount that we had in budgeted for new growth for this fiscal year. The other items, as you go down through the list, the last year's override is shown here at $144,333. We're not raising an additional amount for this year, so it's within the amount of money that we have available to us and will be budgeted toward the schools. We don't want to raise that number twice, so it's not shown as a recommended amount for FY20. So the total amount of money that we have available through taxation is $13,789,316, and I think I mentioned to you that compares to the current year, which is $13,807,637, and it proves my point that our revenues are flat because of the debt exclusion that's coming off the books. We then take our other estimated receipts, which is our cherry sheet revenues, our lottery receipts, and our enterprise fund revenues, and we add those to the amount that we have available. We also include an amount for free cash, which is $30,740. We will recommend an amount from the stabilization fund of $137,120, and we really need those two items to bring the budget to a balance. And that means that the total amount of revenue that we have available for the budget is $21,134,515. And again, I just point out the fact that that's a bit lower, excuse me, a little bit higher than this year because of the fact that we've included some additional revenues that are in there. So the amount of free cash that will be available, if we go forward with this recommendation, would be $100,000. That's what would remain in the account, and I hope that we could replenish that at the fall town meeting again.
Hey, Greg?
Yes, Paul?
On revenue local receipts,
Yeah.
right near the end of the last page, it shows investment earnings that was projected at 28,170. And the actual for this fiscal year is 81,319.91.
Yep.
Yet we continue to project 28,170.
Yep.
Can you explain that?
Yeah, what we want to do is we want to keep our local receipts budgeted very conservatively so that we have an amount that we can create in free cash. So this is kind of in keeping with the practice that we've had in the past, is budget conservatively for our local receipts and allow some of that surplus money to be gathered up and create free cash.
Perfect sense. However, when you talk about the contributions to balancing the budget,
Yep.
between last year and this year, there's substantially more free cash listed for last year than there is proposed for the coming year.
That's true. That's because what happened was we saved an amount of money last year in unspent free cash in case the override didn't pass from the schools. Because we knew that we would be faced with a significant bill, and the strategy was to put aside an amount of money in case the override didn't pass.
Right. However, my point is, if we're listing investment income at the same amount as this year.
Yep.
But so far, this year is already 53,000 over that, and that is to help balance, come up with and have a good figure in free cash, then why are we looking at such a small figure contribution from free cash to balance the FY20 budget?
Because that's what we have available. So that $30,740, Paul, represents the total amount that we have available to go toward the budget. That's it. So that's the free cash in its entirety to go toward the budget. We won't have our next batch of free cash until September, and that money will be available to be expended at October town meeting. So what we do is we close our books, Paul, at the end of June every year. We then do our balance sheet, and as a result of our balance sheet, it goes to the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue then certifies free cash, a new free cash number every single year, and we will have that number available for the fall town meeting in October. But that number has no relevancy to the $30,740 because every year free cash is calculated separately. It can be
Okay.
higher, it can be lower.
All right.
But typically, we've had about $300,000, $325,000 in free cash every single year.
I know, and it concerns me that I don't see that figure.
Yeah, and you don't see it. But we've routinely brought in, it's been as high as 400, but it's generally in the range of about 300 of free cash. And my hope is by budgeting conservatively, we will have that amount available at the fall town meeting, which we
Okay.
will need.
And Greg, just to extrapolate on what you said, we put monies aside in case the override didn't pass, which we all know it did.
Right.
And based on the joint meeting we had about a month ago, Kerry, we were there, schools made it clear that although their override is forever, they said the override years are over. And when finally questioned by me at the end of the meeting,
Where are you going?
the 1.5 million in technology upgrades, the first year, they made it clear that that money has already been absorbed into their budget, allocated somewhere else. And they were still coming back with a number that's we can't support.
This year, and I can only speak to this year, you're right. This year's budget, though, on the school side is exactly where I thought they would be. So the number that's there does represent the commitment that they expressed at that meeting, that the override would cover 2 fiscal years. And so the only increase in that budget, we're taking off debt, the only increase is the required minimum contribution, and that's it. So there's no additional amount.
If that's their final figure, because they hadn't finished their budget, right?
They had, they had not finished their budget, but I have every reason to believe that the number that you see here of $8,780,840 represents a number that they're confident in, and I'm confident that that's what's going to come forward. Remember, it's a 2-town budget, and both Charlton, Dudley, and the schools need to be on the same page to kind of reach unification. And I'm comfortable with that number. Would I like to see it be less? Sure. But I think that number is fair, given the commitment of the override. The real question, as you pointed out, is what happens in fiscal '21, a year from now, when we sit down with the schools and discuss where their budget is, and that's where they express the fact that they maybe need more money at that time.
Okay.
Any questions for the administrator? Greg, you still?
Just to kind of finish up on page 2. So if you look at the second half of page 2, it talks about expenditures, and it shows the gross amount that we need to appropriate. It shows the additional amounts that we need to appropriate to go toward our overlay account, which is $100,000, and that's the number that comes from the assessors. And then other items such as cherry sheet offsets and overdrawn accounts, excuse me, state assessments, not overdrawn accounts. And so if you look at it and you see that the amount that we have available for revenue is $134,515, and then if you look further down the list on the bottom for total available expenditures, $21,134,516. So we are balanced, precariously so, but I think we've been precariously balanced every year that I've been here. I guess the real surprise was the fact that with the school override, I had the perception that things would be pretty rosy, and they weren't. They weren't. It was kind of like the same old all over again. And I think the fact that we had put $214,000, almost $215,000 toward free cash, and this year toward the budget, and this year we're putting $30,000 toward it, and the fact that our fixed costs went up, kind of put us in a position that was not as good as we thought we would be.
Well, I just want to say, based on that meeting we went to, it was made pretty clear that the schools were going to present as they felt necessary. It was pointed out that the figure they originally proposed not only would have taken every penny of new growth that we had, it would have taken, they said something about 1.5 million, if I'm not incorrect, Kerry.
1.2 to 1.5?
Just to get their rates, and when it was brought up that
1.5.
it was brought up that they're facing declining enrollment. They came back with state mandates and fixed costs with salary and benefits, which they estimated was 80% of their budget, and we tried to present, we have mandates too, we have budgets, we have, excuse me, salary, we have dam compliance things.
Stormwater.
Really, yeah, stormwater was a big one. It really didn't seem to catch anybody's attention on the other side of the table. And I just want to state again for the record, as we look at Greg's Appendix A, which I think all department heads have or are familiar with, I want to publicly thank every department head, every town employee, because every single line item proposed by the town administrator's budget while working with department heads and employees is a negative from what was requested to the town administrator's budget, with the exception of a $1 in the conservation fund. We have negative amounts from $1,800 up to over $30,000, up to $60,000. Every single town department with the, I can take that back, the tree warden.
Major.
Tree warden didn't get a negative, but he didn't get much of, it's got 2,500. Every single department is a negative on the town side.
Yeah, and I just do want to raise and point out that you can see that the amount that was requested in one item, and I look at veterans, for example, the budget request was $262,840, and we funded $195,084. And it's just kind of indicative of the fact that I think the town would probably benefit by looking at a regional district to be able to address what veterans' costs will be and service to veterans will be going forward. I think the fact that we need to provide more, but we can't afford to do it on our own, really needs to drive our decision in terms of looking at maybe a
We're
district.
gonna need to do it, we have to do it.
And, you know, I think it's a good opportunity to say that the budget can't support a standalone department in that amount of money, but maybe if we combine with another community, we can provide better services at less cost. And I just wanted to throw that out there for what it's worth, and let you know that that's something that I need to look at between now and town meeting. If that's the case, then I'll come back to the board and make a recommendation on that. But it's certainly something that when you look at the numbers that are here, we can't fund it at the level that the department had requested, and that causes me some concerns.
You know, Greg,
Chairman, good, I'm sorry.
we're, to go off, we're almost up against that population cap on that anyway.
Right.
Yeah, it's 12,000, so we're
11.
right there.
And well, the night we had the veterans agent in here, veteran service officer, and I publicly stated, and I think the board agreed, and I'll say it again, whatever decision we attempt to reach going forward is gonna be in the best interest of the veterans. If we're, as you talking about the escalating
Absolutely.
costs, you know, where the regional, other towns have done it and made it work, we would, the decision that's gonna be made is gonna be in the best interest of the veterans.
Well, like I said, I know that what I say may be unpopular in some circles, but the town can't afford to fully fund that budget to the amount that the department feels needs to be done. And the only way we really can provide the level of services that are needed is to look at combining as part of the district. And I'll leave it at that.
Mr. Joseph?
Beyond that, the budget kind of speaks for itself. The FAA will be meeting on Thursday night. I'll be there. If anyone else wants to be there, please feel free to join me. They'll come back with a recommendation after that meeting, and you'll have that at your next meeting. What we normally do is we include in the warrant the bottom line totals that you see here. So if you look at the bottom line totals, that's what goes into the warrant, and that's what gets printed in the warrant. And that's what we vote on at town meeting.
Mr. Chairman, what is the status of the solar array on the Old Town landfill?
We have not completed that project. We've not completed that.
I thought we put that up to bids.
We did, and the developer needed to get into a queue through the DOER, Department of Energy Resources, to receive an allotment or share of solar power, because there's a limited number of projects that are funded, and from what I understand, they're still waiting for that approval.
So it's not on our end, it's on their end.
It's not us.
Right.
Is that something that our state senator and state rep can help with?
I'm not sure how political it is, Paul. It's just a question of kind of putting the request in a timely basis and getting in the queue and waiting for your number to come up.
You know what? Can we ask them if there's something that they can do?
Yeah, I think that's worth asking.
Okay.
Is there only so much sun? I don't,
It's not time, it's the allocation.
It's the allocation of
Credits.
credits.
Credits, all about the credits.
I'd like them to get to work on it for us.
just makes no sense.
All we control is-
So, could I review the warrant with you?
No.
Is it necessary tonight?
Yeah, I'll go through it quickly. It is, because we're kind of, like we always are at this time of year, we're always kind of against the gun. So the last time we met, the warrant hadn't closed. The warrant closed, and we received a total of 36 articles, 35 submitted by department and town officials, and one petition article dealing with solar, large-scale solar voltaic bylaw. The articles themselves are, the funding request ones are what I call routine. The actors change, the projects change, but there's nothing in there that's really remarkable. But there are some things that you might want to take a note of as you kind of flip through here. The article dealing with special legislation for creation of the Department of Public Works is here. It's been vetted by town council, so it's here. It's final, it's in its final form, the way it is right now, and that's here in its entirety. There are also a couple of other bylaw changes. There's one bylaw change submitted by the town clerk dealing with dogs and kennels and licensing and updating our bylaw concerning kennels, because as you may have followed, there is a matter before the zoning board of appeals dealing with dogs and kennels, and we have, as a result of that, found that we need to update our bylaw to reflect kenneling of dogs, which is a large number of dogs. There's also a number of zoning bylaw requests that are in here, dealing with zoning and such. And I know that there'll be a public hearing on them, so if you care to go to them, you can have an opportunity to go to those hearings also. And then, Dean, the one about sprinkler systems? Could you?
Back in 2013, we approved 26I, which was for 4-family and above. This one is 26H. All this is saying it's for boarding houses and dormitories. If it's repurposed as that, it would require sprinklers, and we have a few of those popping up here and there outside of campus. So I just wanted that approved, so we have a little more bite when it comes to taking on these projects to require sprinklers. I think it's especially important where you're dealing with college-age students and a large number of students in a small home.
Greg, you good with that?
Yeah, I'm okay. Just want to let you know that this is not asking for your signature and approval.
No,
But-
good with the chief's explanation?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, all I did is copy the law directly out of chapter 148, put it, and had to put it in the form of a question, just to adopt it.
Thanks, chief.
So-
Strictly informational this time?
Strictly informational. We typically have a warrant public hearing that'll take place probably within the next 2 to 3 weeks. And that's jointly with the FAA. We go through each article and describe it in detail, and there's no reason to do that tonight. But the planning board article, there's a housekeeping article in here, which has got all types of changes because there's been some errors in the zoning bylaw that need to be corrected. So you'll see one in here that just goes on and on with corrections to the bylaw. And that's the town planner doing his due diligence and making sure that all of the typographical and incorrect wording errors are taken care of. And that's an article that's in here also.
Greg, there's also another planning board article and has an addendum to, or the italicized sentence. Is that going to be straightened out by the planner also?
Which one is that?
X.
Yeah, there's a bunch of X's in there.
The one after the one you were just talking about.
Oh, they're all X's.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're all X's.
It appears that, once again, we're going to be asked to accept something, and the paperwork has not been met by the developer.
Here we go again.
Laws. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. Selectman's office is not aware of paperwork being filed.
Oh, yeah, yeah, that's true.
Was it filed with the planning board on time, do we know?
Not that I'm aware of, but
By adopted bylaw.
we kind of like to put things in here. The list will be reduced from what you see here, but if there was a thought that there might be a warrant article that's needed, we put it in. We put it in because we'd say in this draft version, we like to put in placeholders so you see everything that's out there.
I just want to be sure that if every step has not been followed, and it's clearly spelled out, and it's not that difficult, that the wrath does not fall at the wrong people.
Right.
Then we speak up against it.
Well, no, it just doesn't even go on, doesn't go forward. It's not,
Well, are you saying we should not approve it for the warrant?
if the proper paperwork has not been filed in the time manner that's laid out by the bylaw, wouldn't even proceed on to the final warrant.
That's true.
So I just want the anger to be
That's true.
directed where it needs to be directed. I don't have the dates in front of me, Vinnie, I don't know if you're off the top of your head, but you have to file new street acceptances only at the Springtown meeting. Paperwork has to be filed, and I'm gonna probably say the wrong date, January 20th or something like that. So if those deadlines have not been met, then this article wouldn't even go forward, but it's not our fault.
So you're not suggesting it be removed from the warrant?
Only if, in conversation with the planner, they say, yep, they didn't get their paperwork in on time.
Okay.
That's all, I just wanna make sure,
Pass over or whatever, yeah.
not even Pat, we'll make the final copy.
Right, it wouldn't even make it on.
Oh, okay.
It wouldn't make it on.
Right,
Fair
that's
enough.
all.
Fair enough.
Good presentation, Greg.
Thank you,
Sorry,
Greg.
sorry to take so long.
Oh.
So the next steps are, we meet with the FAA. We need to submit, finalize these articles and get them in the hands of council. Council, other than the zoning bylaws and the special legislation, hasn't seen these. She's been working with us on those other, the zoning articles and the special legislation. But the other items will need to go back before council. Council reviews them, puts them in a final format, and we really need to have the warrant signed not less than 7 days, signed and posted not less than 7 days before town meeting. So our plan was to bring the warrant before you on May 6th.
Well, any outstanding questions, folks?
Please let us know.
Get emails to Greg, or stop in and see him, and
Stop by and see me if you want to go through it.
that's my biggest one on first blush. If paperwork hasn't been submitted in a timely, proper manner, I don't want the anger to be directed at
Right, or
us.
maybe we have, we just don't know.
Right, I'm
Maybe
not
it's
saying
sitting
it wasn't.
somewhere, right?
Yeah,
We just gotta receive the letter from the
Right,
planning board
maybe
saying
it's
no.
down the hall or
right, that's what I'm
something.
saying, I'm not saying it's not, just,
I just put it on there because
board member comments? Mr. Joseph?
Just one, on the, we got copies in today's packet of the April 10th letters that was sent to Durant and Fatman, and I want to make a correction. There were 3 items on there, but the lead-in is, I am writing as a follow-up to the request made by Selectman Paul Joseph at the Board of Selectmen's meeting you attended. Please note the following. The first is the codfish, which, by the way, Peter has filed a bill. Hopefully, he's gotten others to sign on. I don't even know if he's tried, I haven't heard. But the other 2, it's an incorrect statement that they are requests made by me. Originally, I made those requests prior to that last meeting with them, and subsequently, the Board of Selectmen voted 5-0 to send them a letter regarding points number 2 and number 3, and that's not in this letter, and I think it should have been. That's my only comment.
We did all agree to that,
Yeah,
just to say, we did, so.
Easily fixed.
Yeah, it's easily fixed. They know they need to do that stuff.
I mean, I think you made it clear, Paul, that night they were here, that,
Yep.
you know, as a board, we did take the vote to request follow-up.
Agreed.
Kerry?
I'm good, thank you.
I should add at the beginning of the meeting, and I apologize, I was remiss. We try to recognize and send sympathies to the family of Joe Bennett. Joe recently passed away. Wonderful man, great advocate for the town of Dudley. If you're of a certain age, especially as a young youth that played sports, Joe Bennett was always present. He was a big backer at Dudley Little League with his sons. Just a real nice guy, a true gentleman. He served on our cable commission a number of years. Matter of fact, he got back on right after I became a selectman, because that committee kind of went dormant, and he was an advocate for people and children of the town of Dudley, and I know I speak for the board and the town when I say we send our deepest sympathies to the family of Joe Bennett, and Joe will be missed. Mr. Marcy?
Just wanted to remind everybody about the Dudley Little League Parade, which will be held on Saturday, May 4th. Starts at the town hall at noon. So if anybody wants to come and participate, you know, come on down. Also, welcome our board members to do that, or any elected official, or any town employee that wants to march to do that.
Pray for sunshine, and
Haven't had much of that lately.
at the risk of offending my friend to my left, I hope John doesn't bounce it over the plate this time.
I'm not doing that for sure. I did that once.
You had your suit coat on. That
I
was-
did have my suit on.
Someone here threw a perfect strike, though, when they had a...
You were halfway to the plate, though.
I redeemed myself a year later, so.
Yeah, but no one remembers that.
But
I was the
Fair
full
enough.
distance, thank you.
Departmental comments and communications, police.
One quick thing, Mr. Chairman, we have this coming Saturday, the Drug Take-Back Day. So it's from 9 to 1 here at the station. So anybody has any prescription medications or even some needles to dispose of, we can collect them at that time. And I'll probably be up to Joshua Place, I think, on Friday morning, collecting things up there from any of the folks that need to. So, thank you.
Fire and EMS, good. Acting highway, good. Water sewer, good.
Library was here. Hope they left.
Greg, you all good with town? This time, the chair will take a motion to adjourn into executive session for two purposes. One, under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 2A1, to discuss reputation, character, physical condition, mental health, rather than professional competence of an individual, or discuss discipline or dismissal of, or complaint or charges against a public officer, employee, staff member, or individual. B, to convene into executive session under Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 21A, subsection 3, to discuss strategy with respect to collective bargaining or litigation if an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining or litigating position of the public body. The chair so declares. We will not reconvene in open session. The conclusion of executive session will conclude our business.
So
So
moved.
moved. Aye.
Second.
Call vote. Motion
Paul
made.
Joseph, aye.
Carrie Sigenovich, aye.
Stephen Sullivan, aye.
John Marcy, aye.
Good evening,
Hey,
everyone.
thank you, everybody. Good night.